Ready to explore?
Wilderness? Dungeon? City? What do you have for me?
Even better than a dungeon, today we explore your backstory.
Well, perhaps that should be something we discuss, using your backstory as a dungeon for D&D.
Welcome to Nerdarchy for Nerds, by Nerds. I'm Nerdarchy Dave, and today I'm hanging out with this nerd.
Nerdarchy Ted.
You won't have to slay any monsters to get that sweet D&D video loot in the YouTube dungeon if you hit that subscribe button.
And if Nerdarchy is the true treasure you're after, you're going to have to attune to that notification bell.
Hey, remember, Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, we drop new videos, so just head over to Nerdarchy, the YouTube channel, and check it out. You know, Ted, if we're going to do a video about backstories, and we're talking about backstories, you're going to want a great way to organize those backstories.
And I think I got a good example. Could it be Campfire Technologies?
Campfire Technologies is an awesome way to organize your backstories, all of your stories, your NPCs, even your player characters. It's, you can build encyclopedia bases, you can add maps, do timelines, family trees. It's an awesome authoring and world building tool.
Campfire Technologies is a great database. Way to put all of your information together in a logical, easy format. I would just wish my brain could function as easily as Campfire Technologies.
There will be a link down in the description. Go check it out.
All right, Dave. So we're bringing this idea to the table today about running your backstory as a dungeon. Do tell.
All right. First of all, right, there are so many players that come up with tragic backstories. Why?
Well, I mean, there's so many different avenues to think. Some people want to just be like, well, I want to sever all ties from the life I had before so that my character has an excuse to go off and do this risky thing. And it's a pretty big trope, but I just don't think it's really all that necessary anymore.
Yeah, that's true. And I feel like part of it is like, one, they want to cut ties. The other part is they don't want their DM, their Dungeon Master, to use their backstory against them. And that is the biggest concern for a lot of players. And sometimes it can be valid. Dungeon Masters will kind of abuse that backstory and, do things that the player wouldn't like. And not only that too, like, I think also they can be sometimes short-sighted in how they do it. So really, I think we need to talk about exploring a character backstory versus weaponizing it.
So weaponizing it is absolutely a good way to say it. And I think part of that comes from, do you trust your Dungeon Master? If you feel that your DM is out to get you and that everything is a weapon that's going to be used against you, is that really the kind of campaign that you want to be a part of? I think getting to the point where you can trust your GM and hand him every weapon. I mean, literally the books behind us are, littered with things that are probably more powerful than what your PC is. And if they really want you dead, they can make you dead. They don't need extra ammunition. I think the concept here is to really look at, taking those moments, finding those things that could be flaws to get to your heartstrings, to make you have tough choices to improve the story as opposed to just harm your character.
Yeah, so, weaponizing the backstory is like what we talked about, why people create the tragic backstories. Like, oh, you can't kill my parents. They're already dead. Everybody I love is already dead. I built my character on a pile of corpses. There is nobody left for you to hurt my character with, right? And that's like weaponizing it. But like, if you go the other route and give the players and the DM a chance to use these backstories as places to be explored, much like a dungeon, right? It's way cooler to be able to go through all the different rooms and all the different levels and engage with all these different things. Instead of murdering the player's parents, introduce them into the story and, have the rest of the adventuring party get to meet them, know them, love them, then maybe kill them. No. But no, like, you're so much more vested. Why just, have the players arrive back to their hometown after the massacre has happened, so you can motivate them to go after your big bad evil guy? Why not have them show up before the massacre would take place, and the town is under siege, and now the players are getting to meet all the different townsfolk, the characters' families, and really like get vested in protecting these people and care about these people. And then it's on them to make sure bad stuff doesn't happen to them. So they become a part of it. They're active participants. They're not like these bystanders as this stuff's going to get happen to. And also you're going to give them a reason to really care. If you can, not just like the people in the backstory from the players, but like an example of the town that's going to, come under siege after the players arrive, they can really get to know some of these other NPCs as well and get them really vested in the story.
Beyond what beyond what the player has written, uh, you know, the relationships that exist are only what the players have created within their story. Is that character, that PC, any more attached to the story in their background than to an NPC that they've interacted with in town? Those relationships are going to get built up through play. You know, so it is really up to you as the GM. If you want to have these, I want to pull at the heartstring moments, they can be created, regardless of what's actually going on, unless the character has chosen to be like, no, my character is callous. He doesn't care about anybody else. And that player is just basically putting up a wall saying, I don't want an emotional investment in this game. And you're not really going to be able to change that. But if you've got players who are looking to get emotionally invested in the game, when you have a player who's invested in the character, invested in their background, invested in your NPCs, and invested in your world, you've got a story that is going to ring through, the rest of their lives because they care that much. You might pull at those heartstrings. You might kill a favored PC or NPC. But even like the moments where I've had where like tragic death has happened on either side of that PC NPC, it is still moments where it's like, man, that's rough. I have a friend who legitimately, has been angry at Dave for years because an NPC that he cared about died. You know, it's not still raging to this day, but it was definitely, hurt because he cared that much. He was invested in the story that much. That's how much, Dave's interaction happened. You know, and I've had similar experiences where I was wholeheartedly invested in what was going on in the campaign because I cared that much. And these are the things that you want to look forward to. And when you're planning your backstory, is to have these kind of ties, these kind of moments be affected by the game rather than shutting yourself off from them because you're afraid the DM is going to hurt you.
Yeah, and not only that too, not just like, oh, make the characters really care about these things even more so you can take them away. It's not even about that either. It's about also like introducing these cool aha moments, right? And some of those moments might be like, oh, you go back to town, it becomes besieged, and like everyone's like figuring out what they're going to do. And your mother, who's been like a seamstress all your life, right, she pulls out this wooden elaborate case, flips it open, and pulls out this like amazing longsword. Well, what you didn't know, your mom was actually a sword master from another country or another place, another kingdom or whatever, and has like been this badass all along. And now like your character can have the opportunity to fight alongside them, after newly discovering this aspect of that character that they didn't know about. And that's what I really mean about exploring these different avenues, like insights to maybe characters, NPCs that the player came up with that can change and can become mutable and grow as the story grows and as attachments grow. Maybe it's that scene that's going to like give that character access to another battle master maneuver that they didn't have before, whether it's one in the books or one that you make up. But we can use these as opportunities for character growth, instead of just like attacking these different things. And there's always like more interesting ways to do it. I've used the example of you discover, you come home and your aunt's, slated to get married. And it turns out, it appears the person she's going to marry is a really terrible person. And it's like, well, your aunt is not going to like you or feel, have good feelings towards you if you just attack that person and try and eliminate them like they were a monster. You have to figure out a way in order to deal with this situation that is going to be, leave that relationship with your aunt intact that you care about, and still protect them from what you perceive as a threat. Or maybe it's not a threat, maybe it's a red herring. But like, these are opportunities to go in different directions with the stories and have different kinds of narratives.
So, we have different options when it comes to, sitting behind, that proverbial DM screen. And they talk about the carrot and the stick. So what should DMs be using here, Dave?
So personally, I think you should use the stick very sparingly, and that would be like, I'm going to destroy the things you love, right? And when you're going to do that, don't just make them happen. If they do happen, make it consequences of the choices that the player had to make, right? Like, in the example of, oh, it turns out your mom was this amazing swords master. And like, she's fighting against overwhelming odds. Do you go help her, or do you get the kids out of the orphanage that's about to burn down? Right? What are you going to do? Or you can really have these opportunities. Maybe the players come up with this amazing plan where they get to do both at the same time. But maybe they don't. But either way, there's consequences that have to be lived with, and you can do it. Now, as for carrots, like, the carrot is by rewarding them for actually delving into those backstories and bringing them forward with cool role-playing moments.
I've been involved in games where, elements of my backstory that have been, kind of shortened, or just like, here's the cut and dry, here's the thing that's necessary. And the DM is like, oh, I'm going to incorporate it this way, or I'm going to incorporate it that way. Jake from Any Terrain Domain, who I play with on Thursdays, Dawnbringers, he's done an amazing job incorporating a lot of the characters' backstories into the actual game that we're playing. Even moments where it's like, oh yeah, lots of people I know have died. There are still ways to tie those elements in. There are still ways to be like, oh, well, all of these characters' stories have been, kind of slowly been puppetized, if you will, to be, needed and worked into place to get everyone together. Just all of this was happening behind the scenes with no one really knowing. And a great GM is going to do these kinds of things. So as a GM, you really should be asking, what are your backstory elements that you would like to see come up in the game? What do you have that I'm given freedom with to be able to explore and play with? And the more that you kind of bring these concepts together, the more things that you can tie into the game and be rewarded by, as Dave says, those nice role-playing moments, those aha moments that are going to be like, man, hadn't thought about that, or I didn't know that, and those things can be just utterly fantastic.
Yeah, getting to a place where you can give your dungeon master the freedom to be like, oh, you know what? Here's what I know that happened. Do what you want with the rest, right? And I love when players do that. Tedda did it in one of our recent games, where his character was separated from his people. He doesn't know what happened to them. I think he assumed they were all dead. And later in that campaign, I actually introduced, most of his tribe, most of his people, minus his family, but also the idea that they might still be out there. So it gives us these chances as DMs to, take that stuff from their backstory, put it in there, let them explore it, make them even like rewards in themselves. Like, his character was super happy to be reunited. He also has hope that, oh, my mother and father might still be out there, because all these others have made it as well. So, yeah, there's definitely a lot of different ways we can explore the backstory.
We've done quite a lot of backstory videos, and in case you missed our last one, we got D&D 5e Tools, The Backstory.
If you found this video helpful, you might find our patron even more useful.
As a special thank you, our patrons get access to our 5e content that we make monthly, to get a chance to game with us, and more.
So until next time,
stay nerdy.